Hey, and welcome to the fourth installment of this car game tutorial. So as you've seen in the previous episodes, we now have the car set up correctly in the game, and we also have the music system set up in the game. Now, they're all well and good, and don't get me wrong, I'm really happy with how they sound. But there's just a few more elements that I just wanted to add to the game until I decided that it was done. So one of them being the environmental noises. So obviously if you were at a racetrack and all of a sudden the race has gone past and you were left with no cars around, obviously you wouldn't hear silence. You would probably hear, obviously if you're in the countryside, you'd probably hear like birds chirping, you'd hear like odd wind noises. So to add that to the game, because the camera is actually outside of the car, I thought it would be nice to actually add some environmental noises to there first off. So like here I've got different ones, so I've got like birds. That was actually recorded by myself at home, just out my bathroom window. I was just holding my phone set to stereo, and obviously got this nice stereo recording of just birds chirping. So that'd be good for like course 1, 5 and maybe just 4. I've got crickets for the second course, which is set at night time, so obviously in some countries at night time you expect to hear like crickets and that around. So that adds like a nice little ambience again. And then I've just got this desert sound that I got from a BBC pack, I believe, which I'm not too sure about because it sounds a little bit like a jungle, but I still think it works, just as a little layer. As I say, these sound effects are all well and good, but when you listen to them here, they're just in like a stereo recording, which is okay, but obviously in the game you want it to be coming from certain objects. So just a little bit later in Unity, I will actually show you how I've added that to like the environment, and how like the birds actually sound like they're coming from the trees and not just stereo in your ears. Just the main thing that I've just got to show you is that obviously it has position and orientation on the positioning settings, so obviously then it can be positioned to certain game objects and is not just being played to the camera directly. So another thing about the environments, obviously as you've probably seen in the little demos, there is actually, just before you start, there is a count from 3 to 1, which obviously you would hear in like proper races, in real life ones. So this was actually I believe a serum patch that I made. It was just simply like a square wave, just played at different pitches, like an octave apart. So I've got the count phrase, which is just a short little beep, and then go, which is an octave higher. Again, these aren't that special, but they just add something to that game, because as you say, you would expect to hear it in real life. It gets the user audio-wise ready for the race, because it's like, okay, 3, 2, 1, go. It just adds to that, if you would, excitement to the game. It's just a nice feature to actually hear them beeps, to know how long you've got audibly before the race starts. So I was quite happy with that, and again they just go to normal sound effects, because you want to sort of hear that just in stereo. You could have it coming from a game object, there's nothing wrong with that, but it was just a personal choice that I wanted it just coming in stereo. And then we also have here the crowd applauses. So within this game you actually have like the seating and that for audiences to sit in, but the actual developer obviously didn't choose to have like a virtual audience in there. But personally I thought it'd be nice to include it, even if they weren't there visually. I think it'd be nice to actually include it audibly. So just here I just have a short little looping segment of a crowd applauding with a lot of reverb on it. And that is quite loud. I know it's quite loud, but because it's been positioned from far away game objects, it doesn't matter that much, because when you're playing it isn't overwhelming. Then just a simple crowd finish. So yeah, as I say, that just adds to that ambience of the track, if you know what I mean. Them 3 things just make up the environmental sound effect. Just adds a little bit more excitement to like certain parts of the track, as obviously you'll see in Unity. So I thought in this video, or else it would be short, I would also include the UI. So UI is just basically the user interface, anything that pops up in front of the user during either the menu or the actual gameplay I class as UI. So the first one is the car menu when you're buying cars and that. I won't show you this in Unity because it really isn't that advanced. It is literally just swish sound effects when you're swapping between the vehicles. When you buy a car, you get a little cash register sound effect. Chosen car. This was actually a video of me with a drill, just going like a mechanic would. Spray paint again. That was me with a deodorant can. Just again sounds a bit like a mechanic sort of spray painting a car. This is when obviously like you choose a different colour for your car. Then I just downloaded this one offline. It's just sort of a panning car that I've had going from the left ear to the right ear. Again, just signifying that the race is actually starting. This gets used again when the actual race finishes as well, just to obviously symbolise that the user has gone over the finishing line and has finished the race. Then also I've just extracted a little bit of the tyre screech from the drift sound effect. And that's just when they change like the wheel smoke colour. As I say, there's nothing special in Unity for that. It is literally just that when the user presses the certain OK buttons, that it will actually play that chosen sound effect. So another feature here is the drift coins. So I believe it'd be better to actually show you the drift coins before I actually show how they work. So if I just turn the radio off, as soon as it starts drifting, this wheel will pop up on screen. So you can hear there's quite a bit going on. So as you've seen in that little demo, there is quite a bit going on when the user is drifting up and down. So as you've seen, this little wheel pops up and then all of a sudden the store starts increasing as well as the multiplier. So first and foremost, I wanted there to be a constant sort of noise going on to symbolise scoring the points. So that was this little feature here called Boop, which is controlled by this amount. So because obviously the multiplier in the game only goes up to a maximum of ×3. So I set it as 300 because obviously then that symbolises what multiplier we're on. Then obviously when it reaches ×3, I think that should be the max because the user could go way beyond ×3, but it just sort of audibly showing the listener that actually ×3 is the max you can get multiplier wise, but you're still scoring up basically. So if I play the sound effect, all that parameter control does is actually alters the pitch, and obviously when I do the pitch as well, it alters the speed of the boops, so then they get a lot quicker. This parameter control is also been affecting this little impacting this musical stab. Which will obviously play it at 100, then 200, then 300. And that is also layered with this little kick drum, which gets louder as the score increases. So when that musical stab comes in, it just adds a little impact with it, which obviously gets more impactful over time. So I've said before, with audio, I want to try and create something that lets the user knowing that if they're doing something good or bad. So obviously as the impacts get a lot louder and the boops get faster and what have you, it just lets the user know that actually they are doing good. They are drifting really well, and obviously the score's increasing, they're getting more drift coins. And that's exactly what I wanted to do here. So I believe I've done that well, that when the user is drifting more and not going off course, which I do a lot, I just wanted to audibly show them that actually they are doing well. So that is also just layered with this little coins thing, which was again recorded by me at home. I'd literally just got a towel here, and I was just chucking any loose change just on in my hand or onto the towel. And that's just in this random container of just 3 different sound effects. Luckily, it played just 3 sound effects there, which was nice. But yeah, it's because actually in the game they are called drift coins. So I wanted to try and symbolise that coin aspect into it, because you don't see any coins at all. The only coins that you see is obviously in the menu when you buy new cars and what have you. So I thought it'd just be nice to audibly show that they are actually coins, and that is how you earn the coin. Then just the last little things for UI are clicks, which again I think was just me and Ableton just playing a random chord on a random instrument. I can't remember right now, to be honest with you. I know it's a very simple sound effect and it's quite repetitive, but that's all you need a click to be. It's just symbolising to the user that they have clicked something. So that is pretty much it for the atmospheres and the UI. I'll just jump into Unity now and actually show you how I've implemented that into the game. So first and foremost, let's look at the atmospheres. So here on track 1 we have, as I've said, the birds. So to create a nice little effect here, I've actually used the AK ambient script made by Wwise themselves, which plays the birds in a multi-position mode. I did have a go at creating my own script for this that played the event at different points on the different game objects. The only problem is then with having 13 atmospheres on the course, it was playing 13 different instances of the bird noise. So obviously that just ran up the CPU and the voices and Wwise itself. So I decided not to go with that. Instead I used the AK Ambient, which only actually plays the one event, just in different positions. So if I open up the Unity editor just for a little bit and I go to, say, Atmospheres 1, you'll see that all it is just a little empty object, because obviously I don't want the object to do anything, I just want it to emit noise. So all of these atmospheres are just in random places going from left to right on the track. I tried to mainly try and stick it where the trees are. As you can see, like with that one, I put it like where the trees are and where the user sort of drifts past. But me personally, I thought this created a nice little ambience, because birds just very subtly come in and out of the mix when playing the game. Obviously when you approach some trees it becomes a lot louder, so it actually sounds like them birds are coming from the trees and not just floating around your head as you're playing the game. So I believe this worked quite well, and it is very simple to set up. The main thing to do was just actually put the objects where I wanted them to have them. It did take a little bit of trial and error, because every now and again you would reach a point and the bird noises would just stoop down and it would just go silent, and obviously it would sound weird when that ambience is all of a sudden taken away. So yeah, that's basically how I did them atmospheres. So moving on to the crowds. Now this was a custom thing that I have set up within the game. So as you can see here, this is where the starting track is. You sort of see here like the stands where the crowd would be. And also I think like maybe some engineers or something would be under this hut, like in the service yard for the cars. Obviously you can't see them, but I thought it would be nice to have the crowds there. So I've created this little strip called a applause collider. And basically it is just a box collider that when the user drives into it, as you can see on this on trigger enter, it actually plays the applause. And then obviously when it exits it actually stops the applause. It's a very, very simple script. There's not a lot to it whatsoever. But the main thing is that I've actually created a custom list of emitters. So around the collider you can have different emitters. Obviously you place that where the crowd would be or in another game is. And also that's applied with a boolean called applause on load, and that's basically if, so for example on this one, so because the user obviously is inside the box when it starts up, obviously they don't actually enter this collider, which obviously then that just results in the applause not playing when you first load it up. So all that does is on start it actually calls this function where it actually plays from the emitters. It's not a special, but it's just nice to have that functionality there of just ticking it and making sure that it plays on load. So as you can see, crowd 1 here is just where the actual stands are, then crowd 2 is where obviously like the engineers and that are. And that just references this script that actually starts the applause when they enter and stops it when they exit. Then also he actually does this state group, which I forgot to show you before, so I'll just quickly show you now. That actually on the applause, when he actually exits the applause, the pitch goes down as well as the voice volume because you don't want to hear it anymore. And the reason for this, a bit like the drifts in a couple of episodes ago, when you get further away from an object, a good example for this is ambulances. When that ambulance passes you and it gets further away, it actually decreases in pitch. Because obviously it's getting further and further away, so obviously the pitch of the frequencies go down. It's a bit of a weird phenomenon until you actually experience it yourself. But I thought to add that with the crowd here, so when they exit, just before it actually stops the crowd completely, thought it'd be nice just to have that slow little pitch going down. And obviously that will just symbolise that you've actually passed the audience, they are behind you. Obviously you'll hear from the positioning that they will be like behind you or to the left of you, to the right of you. But it'll just also audibly with the pitch show that you have actually passed them as well. As I say, there's nothing really special going on in this. It just starts the applause and sets the value when it enters. And obviously that function is being called from this main script on the applause collider. And the good thing is here I can select however many crowds I want to be. So if there was 4 different seating areas for the crowd, I could actually just put in 4 objects and then just drag and drop them into there and change the size. So that's how I've got the crowds and that working. So the main drift coins are happening from this UI script set up by the game developer. I won't go too much detail into this because a bit like the vehicle control script, there's a lot of stuff for the gameplay itself, so I don't want to bore you with that. But basically, as I say, I've just found the point of where to actually post the events or to set the parameter controls, and that's exactly how it does it. So obviously here you got like the multiplier up, the drift coins, which is like the actual drift score, so that's the parameter for it, and that's about it, to be honest with you. As I say, it's just a matter of finding the place to post the sound effects and going from there. But the main thing I wanted to show you was these colliders with the applause and obviously like the atmospheres, and obviously that changes per course. So obviously in atmosphere 2 it'll play the crickets rather than the birds. I believe as well on racetrack 4 I actually have Arctic Winds as well playing, because obviously it's set it between the mountains in this snowy place. Let's just simply do that. Obviously I've got my atmospheres here, but I just played the Arctic Wind at the same time as the birds, which is fine, because obviously, as I say, I've sort of set it up so it doesn't ever go silent, so the user doesn't end up finding out that the wind and the birds are coming from the same place, because they're only subtle. It's not obvious for that, if you know what I mean. But I believe it just works ever so well. And to be honest, it's a bit of a shame, because atmospheres like this, you don't really hear it until you turn the music off. But I just wanted them to be there. So then, for example, when the song finishes or the music does go off, the user just isn't there sitting in silence or just listening to the car. You just want them little elements around it just to make the mix sound a lot more fulfilling, if you know what I mean. It reminds me a bit like in music production, say like lo-fi music, for example, because that is quite minimal, and obviously you've not got a lot of elements going in there. Sometimes you just line it with a little bit of vinyl crackle, and very subtly in the mix, but it just fills out that empty space, and that's in some ways what I find that atmospheres do. So that's all that I want to do here, and that's why I've caked them in reverb. That's why I've sort of turned the volume down a little bit in it, because you just want them to just be there but not noticeable to an extent. So yeah, that's about it for this tutorial today. Obviously, if you have any questions about the UI or the atmospheres, just let me know. I'll try and reply to any comments that I get underneath this post. But I hope you've learnt something. I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial showing how I've done the atmospheres and that. And join me in the next episode where I'll be just going over the final touches that I did to this game, because I spent quite a bit of time on the final touches, just making sure that obviously everything's optimized, nothing's being loaded when it shouldn't be loaded, for example, and just how I sort of did that to sort of optimize the game, and obviously so then the audio doesn't have that much of an impact on the CPU. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and I will catch you all in the next episode. See ya.